When we do the project, part of it does involve the fun and the games, but also this serious part where we start to talk about the stories behind the labels people have. And it's not to cause further trauma in any way. It's very much about gaining an understanding and an ownership to those stories, where for many of the people we work with, those stories have destroyed their lives in lots of ways, and they feel that story defines who they are. So by revisiting the story through the different ways we work in applied theatre and in the project, they get to look at it from different perspectives and try to understand and come to terms with things. They learn, probably take a different look at things, and probably have a lot more forgiveness for themselves through it. They often blame themselves for things that they were certainly not to blame for, but because what's happened since with addictions, for example, because they blame themselves for the addictions, they're also blaming themselves for things that led to those addictions. And those things were often childhood traumas that they had absolutely no control over. So when we're telling the stories, it is about this idea of identification, the recognition that others have experienced similar trauma, and the idea that it can resonate with a wider public to try to get them to understand people's situations and how they come to be in the situation that they're in.
You go through things when you're a child and you block it, but then you grow up with it, so you just stick it back in your memory. You don't want anybody to know what happened. But doing Behind the Label has taught me a lot of telling people what I've gone through.
Everyone's got a story, and I've always said I understand people's circumstances, but I understand them more. If you know what I mean, I can pick things from it and see, and to see how they're hurting in a way, and just gives me time to sit back and just understand, like, why is that person being an arsehole to me? If you know what I mean, there's always a story behind it, and it gives me more of it just to work out their background. And
they've all got their stories, which are hard for me to listen to tell the truth.
It's about everyday life. It's about their stories, their problems. Overall, it's about the hardship they faced. And like climbing a mountain, it takes one step at a time to climb it, to get there, to get where they want to be. What they've been through and all that is quite shocking, really, to be honest. But yeah, I can relate to them. It's when I first done this, I'd never expected doing this before, and it opened my eyes to many stories, and I thought my story's bad, but some ways even worse than mine. So yeah, it's an eye-opener.
It would have taken a lot of guts for them to tell that story, and just mentioning the fact that one particular I could relate to from having a previous parent that was bad as well.
For me, I'm not thinking about where it's going. I'm thinking about where we are now and what we're doing and what we're talking about, and that helps me also open up as a person and talk about the issues.
I'm looking forward to getting together with everybody and putting our stories and creating something that nobody else has ever seen.
I've never ever got my story out, ever, in a million years. And that was a lot of stuff I buried for 30 years. So yeah, it was hard for me, and listening to it over and over again on the videos made me cry every time, because it's still raw. When I talk about my kids, this year was the first year for me to celebrate some of my children's birthday not on drugs and alcohol. Was amazing, and I can't thank Jen enough for that. So yeah, and everyone that was there that supported me for that.
Is there chance where people actually listen to real people? Because it's easy for them to just sit and listen to it, but it's like when I'm actually doing it, it's like people are actually giving a shit, and people are actually, because obviously no one's making them be there. So in the back of my head, I'm sort of like, they want to be here. They want to listen to what I have to say, even if it is for like 15 minutes that I'm talking. People still want to be there to listen to what I have to say and listen to me, rather than just palm me off and be like, well, you don't matter or whatever. Like, they're choosing to listen, and it's really nice.
You act out your emotions, and that talks a lot more about you than words, which can be frightening, but also very, very, very relieving when you get something off your chest that's been on there for a long time.
The most amazing stories, and some of them have been through worse than what I have. You know, and to be alone for so many years in your life is horrible. To have no trust from your family or your friends, that's gut-wrenching.
The stories were so powerful. There was a wonderful mixture of laughter, but also depth of things that have happened to people that should never have happened, but being able to share those things, and especially from my point of view, being able to share things that I haven't spoken about, that I've brushed under the carpet, that I've just sort of got on with day-to-day stuff and everything.
Behind the Label is about individual people with their own issues of life, and some are hard hitting, some are quite funny sometimes, but it's a story of an individual, and we don't see stories of individuals, we just see the person and just make our own decisions about that person.
I feel easier saying it, talking about it. Feels easier. I feel great, feel good, feel relieved I actually got it out there.
I had to do it for myself, try to get rid of that fear of my past. And sometimes I think, before I go to speak, I think, is this going to sound stupid? Is it going to sound petty? But then I see the reaction on other people's faces, like some of them have been in the same situation and they're thinking exactly the same thing. This sounds stupid, but if someone can say it, I can say it as well, which is quite inspiring sometimes, listening to other people's stories. It's very emotional, but you realise the things that are going on in your life aren't really that stupid or childish or petty that you thought they were. And then you realise some of it's not even your own fault. Because when other people are saying the same things, it happens to everyone. But it is helping, not just me, everyone. Because I've seen people in the beginning, their confidence was at the floor. Now, you see them walking and they're beaming. They want to, come on, I want to tell my story now. Come on, quick. It's like a weight being lifted off your shoulders. Before I started this, I don't think anyone knew most of my story. They only knew snippets of it.
Looking forward to is learning and listening to other service users and other people that have been through the same situations as me or even worse, and getting them beyond that barrier of keeping it inside themselves rather than opening up. Like, it's just made me realise that you don't have to keep it all bottled up and inside. You know, there are people that listen and there are people in the same situations as you. And the more you talk about it, the more you get to know that other people are probably in the same boat as you, or if not worse.
I mean, I can talk to some of the stuff with my friends, but when it comes down to the really hardcore stuff, I suppose you could say, it's you know, it stays bottled inside sometimes, and just getting that out. You know, I think I've said some of this stuff here for the first time ever, and it's just become a massive loss of weight on my shoulders.
Yes, always think this baggage is you're gonna take it to your grave with you, you know. But taking this baggage I've been had the baggages for over nearly 40 years, carrying it. Only new now, this last last or couple months now when I you know that I got luggages, I got baggages, you know, to realize that I got baggages, I got to try to get rid of them, you know, doing the therapies.
Talking about experience is, it gets a lot of problems off your chest, and you don't believe half the stories that you hear until you listen to what we've got to say, which is quite a difference to what people think. I kept my problems hidden for years and never told anybody anything. But Behind the Label brought me out of myself, and I told some parts of my life, but not all of it, which will come in the next episode. Hopefully. It got a lot off my chest, a lot out my head, which doesn't fucking hold a lot, actually. But yes, it does, actually. Telling somebody what you've been through and getting it off your chest and out your head is a totally different thing, because you're not holding it back. You've actually told somebody what happened, and the difference is, once you get it off your chest and out of your memory, it's a different life. You're not holding anything back, well, apart from yourself. So, thank you very much. Behind the Label really tells you to tell your story the way you want it to be proceeded. It's not hiding it, it's actually telling it and telling it how it is. So you're not hiding the fact. And to be truthful and honest, it's a big achievement, which is really brilliant.
I was really quiet, I didn't really have a voice, but now I am. Everyone is telling me stories, so I think it gave me the courage to say it.
When we do Behind the Label, each year we have an option that people can be involved in a performance. And it's not your normal theatre performance, it's an applied theatre performance. So it's based on people's real stories, and basically the empowerment that comes from being able to tell your story. We never insist that anybody performs or goes on stage to tell their story. That has to be something that individuals choose to do. What we do in terms of entertainment is create a concept, a theatrical concept in which the stories can be delivered. So, these guys aren't actors. We're not expecting them to go out and act. All we're doing is giving them a vehicle in which they can use to tell their stories if they choose. So it's not a scripted performance. The story the concept is a scripted concept in the sense of what will be where and what will happen. But when these guys go out on stage to tell their story, they have a pointer for which part of their story they're going to talk about. But the months of the project are about preparing them to be able to tell that story in a way that is effective and consumable, digestible. I'm not sure how exactly you would describe it. I mean, these are stories of quite horrific trauma at times, and we do have to take care what is said on stage, partly for the audience and partly for the individual who's sharing. So there's a lot of work that goes into what is shared, and it's up to the very last minute. It's optional for those who have said they want to perform, whether or not they do share all those things. What's interesting is at the start of each year, usually most people say, I don't want to perform. And that's fine, we leave it at that, because the performance doesn't actually come into any conversations until about 4 weeks before the actual performance. It's not something we prepare a long time for. The emphasis is on the project. But by the time we get to that last month, usually every single one of them want to perform, go on stage. And it comes back to that idea of owning your story. They feel empowered and confident to go out on stage because they now own their story rather than their story owning them. And there's a great sense of freedom in being able to talk about those things and to be listened to. You know, for many of these people that they feel it's the first time in their life people actually listen to them, and being on stage and telling their story, they are being listened to. And we also have, as part of the programme, how we follow that up with them so that there is always that support and guidance with what happens afterwards, after they've shared their story and told their story, and where they go from there. So the project runs leading up to, with all the work leading up to the performance. There's the performance, but then the project continues afterwards as part of the support of how they will move forward with this toolkit we've established with them on how to work through issues and process and deal with things, so that hopefully if further trauma or difficulties were to appear afterwards, they have this toolkit to fall back on that they've established and have ownership of as well, rather than any kind of dependence on TVO or us, because we won't always be there. And the last thing we want is that concept of dependence on us, because that will not help anyone moving forward.
I think what I said to the cast before the performance was that I felt they'd brought out the best in me, and I'd seen the best and the worst of them. And I felt bonded together with them, and I felt that they'd given me so much, and it taught me such a lot to work with the cast. And they just they don't realise how much they have to give. I mean the people, yeah, I don't really mean a cast because they're non-actors, but yeah, as people, their humanity and their willingness to challenge themselves and to keep coming back, and the hard work that everybody put in, because it was hard work, and putting yourself in that vulnerable position over and over and over every day and going there. I admire it so much because they're not actors. It's their real story and their real pain, and that's what was amazing to me.
Behind the label is like nothing you'll see on stage. It will certainly open your eyes and make you think more.
I'm really impressed of how everyone performed, how I performed. It's speechless. I can't describe enough the words. I can't get it out.
It was a wonderful evening. The buzz I felt afterwards was just euphoric, and we were all just sort of hugging each other and saying, didn't we smash it, didn't we smash it? It was brilliant.
Nerve-wracking, but I got through it. Didn't think I would because of all the pain I've had, but I got through it. And it's the first time I've ever told my full story.
It was all of us, not just one of us all together. But good. It was a good feeling.
Proud, scared, and thinking, yeah, somebody's actually listening to me for a change, and I'm not standing in the corner and everyone's just ignoring me. They have to sit there and watch me sod them.
Performance night was freaking brilliant. It went down to a T, man. Yeah, honestly, something. Everybody hit the freaking notes and everything, man. It was just freaking so brilliant, man. Do you know what, right? If I could do it again, I'd do it again, man. I'd do it in front of everybody, man. It was so fantastic, man. Everybody I've seen turned around and said how brilliant the show was. And I'm going, yeah, because it was brilliant. It's because we did it. We did it from start to finish. When we came on to it, man, we was nothing. We was nothing. People need to come and watch this to understand what they don't realise what's happening in not in just Cardiff, in other places as well. It's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere, and a lot of people do not realise that it's actually going on. So they need to listen to what we have got to say so they can understand and maybe try to get something sorted for the future.
I was amazingly happy at the achievement that the whole group made. That when everybody came off stage, they started screaming, and I was about to say, "You gotta be quiet backstage," and then I went, no. Let everybody scream, screaming, hugging. Everybody was so happy. And even there was little bumps, you know, in the show, and they just kept going. So it was amazing. Just I feel a proudness for the group, a proudness for myself, and yeah, just so happy.
The feedback has been phenomenal. Everyone has said that they never expected anything like that. They said that it was one of the hardest things that they've had to watch. And they said that all of us are so brave doing what we've did, you know, so brave.
The feedback I've had since is that, from a lot of people, is that it was one of the most real piece of theatre that they've been to, you know, that it really meant, that it got through to them and that it meant something to them personally. A good few people have told me that they've gone through similar experiences in their lives to our various stories.
I've had anxiety all my life, so being in a theatre full of that amount of people was really scary, but I got through it, which you can tell because I'm getting emotional right now. But yeah, I'm really proud of myself, actually.
The tech crew were all amazing and amazed at the show and told me that it was the best thing they'd seen.
I want them to go away and see real people who've come through things that are really, really, really rubbish, and that those people should be included and loved and accepted as much as anybody else. We all have these problems, it's just we've decided to talk about them.
The feedback, oh my gosh, absolutely amazing. Other people have said I was an inspiration for standing up and talking about mental health and having the guts to do it. I nearly bottled out a few times. I'm so glad I feel like I'm out. Do you know what I mean? Other people have said, I'm so proud of you. I didn't feel like exposed. I didn't feel vulnerable. I felt very safe.
I remember looking at the audience and seeing them listening very attentively. I remember just listening and watching the audience's reaction, and their reaction was different in different parts to what I'd been expecting. The play came alive with the audience there watching it, and I felt like there was just a wave of support, and it was really making the cast, they were on a high.
To see a lot of people's faces like shocking, crying, but then you had Scott come on and you had Elsie with the funny parts, so it balanced it back out. But to have that standing ovation as quick as that was amazing, you know.
Watching the audience, his expression, going through sadness, anger, shock, laughing, and the emotions they were going through was amazing. And seeing them all silent to listen to us, which we've never had before. You could see they started thinking about the taboo subjects that no one really wants to talk about.
I remember the amount of people that were there the amount of support. My support worker actually sat in front of me and told me she was there for me if I needed her, which was lovely. And after the bow, I was standing to the side, and there was just a line of people. The line of the audience were just coming up and hugging. And, do you know what I mean? The guys had gone to the changing rooms, but it was like they were coming up and saying, "Oh, well done! This was fantastic, absolutely amazing." And I was just blown away, absolutely blown away, and I was just so proud of myself and everybody else involved. It was awesome.
Well, I want the audience to take away that these things do happen and life does not treat everybody fairly. So it's sort of like if you ever see yourself in a situation that one of us are in or similar to us, to like open up and get the help that you deserve.
Yeah, some people I think found it difficult to sit and listen to those stories, you know, but I hope they then wonder, why did they find that difficult? You know, what did that mean to them? Why was it difficult? And look into that.
I just want people to understand that I'm not fucked up, but I'm on the verge of getting fucked up just through the peer pressure of trying not to fuck up.
I want the audience to know, because this is not fake, you know. People are coming here with genius issues, like, you know. It's not fake. It's not something being arranged and put it, you know, in a place like this. Is people are coming in here, open themselves up with their personal issues, like which are their realities, like, you know. It's nothing fake.
There's such a lot of things about homelessness that people don't understand, and I think people need help. This might help people to understand better. People think give them money and that's it. It's not always the case. Or just give them a house or a roof over their head. It's not the case either.
I'd like people to leave thinking about other people's feelings and emotions. Everybody has some form of baggage. They may be happy on the outside, but struggling on the inside. So please respect other people's journeys.
Hopefully making people more open-minded to homeless people, any of the issues that are involved, addiction, abuse. You know, there is sometimes a reason why people do things out of desperation. It's not because they're a bad person or born a bad person. It's, you know, things happen, and, you know, people need to know that instead of, you know, maybe judging.
It's awesome, really. I enjoyed every minute of it, and they all done brilliantly. Everyone have, so it's amazing. I see all the people laughing and clapping, and, you know, they loved it. So that's gonna be in my memory for a long time.
I thought, no, don't let everybody down. Just do it for yourself. And like I said, when I got that clap yesterday for everybody, I was brilliant.
I remember literally at the end when we were taking our bow, and how everyone stood up quickly, like they had a rocket up their backside. Like, it was amazing the way how everyone just got up and clapped. Like, it made me feel like a star. For one night, I felt like a superstar. It's been a great privilege to experience that.
And I'll never forget this experience, never. It's just been amazing.
The group were so lovely, such a lovely group to work with, that it was an amazing experience, and I will grab the opportunities again. And also, even though, you know, I have a history that can be similar to the service users that I work with, as a support worker, you do tend to, after a while, start to put people in boxes, put labels on people. You know, you're a support worker, and they label you as well. They think, you know, and the guys have voiced it when they came in, they, you know, you're a support worker, you've got a degree or something, you think you're better than us. It's like, no. And for me to be able to express what, you know, my upsetness, them thinking that, and vice versa, for me to explain, you know, or for them to explain to me what it's like to have the labels that they were given by support workers that they feel we think of them as, and as, you know, as can end up happening in your practice. So yeah, the me now sees just people. We are people. We're at different, you might be at different stages in our journeys, we might not, but what journey that is, you know, is probably going to be very similar.
I think with some of them, a privilege that they felt happy to open up and to, you know, to discuss that with you and to almost give that gift, for want of a better word, of their stories and their life to you. I think that's, you feel very privileged and honoured to be a part of that. In terms of some of the stories, how it could happen to anyone. And my partner and I were discussing the other evening that we need to stop taking life for granted, because it literally could happen to anyone, and it could be tomorrow. So we need to definitely just start living for the now and also planning for tomorrow more.
It makes you feel really, really grateful for what you have and makes you realise that in a split second it could be taken away. So, grab it, value it, because you only get one shot, and these guys are living proof that actually one shot can become two chances, and they are grabbing it by both horns right now. But what I think that the main thing I'm going to pick up from these guys is their enthusiasm, is their pride, is their warmth and will to, really want to do better. I can safely say these are not people who are lazy. These are people who really want to grab life and make the most of it because they've seen the dark side and they don't want to go back.
What I take away from this as a project is that there is a massive need for this kind of innovation.
I will take away never to judge people, to listen, to give my time and be more aware. And they inspire me to challenge myself as well and go out of my comfort zone.
Life-changing. I'm sort of like a quiet person anyway, in the corner, I don't speak much and all that, but now I'm more out and getting involved. So for me, it is life-changing for me, personally. Confidence-wise, it's giving me more outlook, where I want to go, what I want to do things, and keep on with it, So outlook is good, amazing. The future is what I take. Is future look forward and go in this direction. That's what I like. Mike, he's a nice guy. Don't get me wrong, he's a nice guy. But he's in the corner. That's where I like to be. He's in the corner, being quiet, That's probably, he's always been like that since a kid and all that, so. But now, different guy he's not in the corner anymore. He's looking ahead with confidence and hope. Let's see what happens. More outgoing now, I think. I think I'm more willing to give it a go, willing to make a difference and seeing what's going to happen. Yeah, it's sort of like it allows me to express myself and like I said before, give yourself a voice and show you what direction you want to go in.
And I'm proud to call them my friends. They really are amazing people, and a lot of them have come a long way who have had no self-esteem, no confidence, and it is sad. But they're in the best place. They couldn't be in a better place, because if it wasn't for this place, some of us wouldn't be here now. Some of us would have no confidence, even to talk to people. Never thought I'd get my life back. I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. But it has made me realise what I have got out there.
My confidence has gone up a lot more. I'm being able to speak my mind a lot more because I've learned from the group how to do, not how to do things, but how to do things better for myself. So because I've done that, my confidence has gone up a bit more. So because I've got rid of all the bad shit and I'm actually paying attention to myself, my confidence has gone up, which I never thought would happen until I came to do this.
Chance to gain more confidence, especially around people with my anxiety, and experience the theatre side of things. My life is one drama, I suppose. Yeah, it has been. It's getting back to normal, I think. Yeah. Just being around quite a few people, I had anxiety issues. I've still got anxiety issues, but being around a lot of people, I used to be, get away from it, run away, But now I've learned to just breathe and enjoy it. And I'm enjoying it, and I find myself growing in confidence. I'm just much more confident, feel a lot better in myself, more self-esteem, you know. Look ahead, like, yeah, that's it, like.
Not knowing what's the future, well, before I done behind the label, I don't think I had a future anyway. I just drifted like in the wind, like as life is. But when I done behind the label and done it again, I got confident.
Moving forward now, I think I'm a completely different person, confidence-wise, totally for the better.
More confident. People treat me different. Yeah, feel more positive.
Yeah, it's sort of like it allows me to express myself, and like I said before, give yourself a voice and show you what direction you want to go in.
It's made me stronger, you know, just sort of relating to other people and just getting most of the stuff that brings me down to other people. You know, I find that they get it as well, and yeah, it just helps strengthen each other.
I just learned to trust. I just could not. Because it took a while, yeah, and I've had my ups and downs. But the staff, brilliant. TVO's brilliant. Learning to trust people and not first way out, who's the nearest threat, how to get out the window, and allowing people to be near me, around me. It's been an eye-opener. Very, very good learning curve and opened my eyes to a different life. And I made a decent friend. Start of a new life for me. All my life I've run away, and it's time for me to stop now. I've always hid, because of what happened to me as a youngster, it was just a built-in defense mechanism. And it's time to give up. I'm not gonna let that monster win. Most of my life I've seen evil, and there are some kind, loving people out there.
I do behind the label because, well, there's a few reasons, and I think the main one for me is being able to give people a voice when they need it, or those who can't say anything, I can be that source of voice for them. And that's always really nice to hear, when people are like, thank you, you've given me, or you've spoken for me because I can't, and it's like, yeah, that's why I do it. Another one is being able to own what happened to me. Like, I don't want sympathy or anything like that, like, that's not why I do it, but it's sort of being able to be like, yeah, this happened to me, this happens to a lot of people, someone's got to say it. So if it starts with me, then it starts with me kind of thing, and that's what I want to do. What I've got from it mainly is like a better understanding of people, because I used to be quite ignorant, because I was like, no one's going through the same thing as me, so no one's going to understand what I'm talking about. But by doing this, I've understood that a lot more people go through shit than I realised they do. So I've learned to open up a little bit and not be so ignorant. I'm noticing who's toxic and who isn't, whereas before I was quite blinded to it. So if somebody was treating me badly, or if they weren't doing what was right for me, I just let them do it. But when I did behind the label, and obviously I got with the group and stuff like that, I'm noticing what actual friendship looks like rather than just what I'm hoping it looks like. And a big positive is being able to cut people off who aren't good for me, and actually tell the difference between who's good for me and who isn't, and like what's actually good.
That I've achieved to do something not just by myself, but with support of other people, and trying to make other people proud of me, because I don't know how many times I could have turned back to the bottle. There's been many a situation, but I stayed strong. I've spoken to people about it, and I don't think I could have done that over a year ago. I would have just gone straight back onto the bottle, but I am stronger, more confident now to say, sod the bottle. The freedom of speech, not to let anyone bring you down or judge you, and like in some places, if you don't do as well as they expect you to do, they sort of don't want you back. But in this project, whatever you've done, right or wrong, They always wanted you back, no matter what. They weren't letting you go.
Behind the Label helped me a very lot through my experiences on the street. It brought me out of my shell. How I'm moving forward positively, I suppose, because I know I've got an addiction. I know I've got a few underlying issues, but I suppose, yeah, sometimes it gets me down knowing that I am this, and I always will be. I'm not letting, I suppose what I'm trying to say, I'm not letting people knock me down, keep me down. Yeah, I might be down there for a while, but I do bounce back.
The Kelly that started the project was not Kelly, basically. Wasn't me. I had just actually gone through with Jaws and got clean about a month before. So everything happened quite quickly, but it was an amazing distraction, if you like, as well as learning. And the amount that I learned in the 18 weeks is just shocking. It is just no word to describe it. I can't even find one.
The Michelle now has finally found her voice. She won't take no shit no more. Definitely not.
It's made me look at myself in a better way and realise I'm not alone at times.
I'll take away change. I'll take away being a lot more stronger and owning my shit. What I've done is I've cut people off that were part of my trauma and learned to ignore them, cut them off, not even respond with a knee-jerk reaction, whether it be text or call or WhatsApp or whatever. I don't buy into that now because I know that they're looking for a certain response and I'll respond in a certain way which won't be healthy. I'm also learning to say no to other situations as well and actually stand a bit more firm and stand my ground without feeling I'm being a nuisance, I suppose is a word. And yeah, being able to say no definitely is a good thing for me.
I think I've gone stronger. It is nice to finish something. Don't go halfway and then just quit.
Changing, more positive, more keen to do things, willing to go to work or college. I'm getting there, yeah. Not up to scratch yet, but yeah.
I feel free. I feel bold. I feel confident. I feel fulfilled. I feel very, very proud of myself. I feel very grateful that I was asked to come on this project. Very grateful, because it could so easily have slipped by me. A sense of value, respect for myself as a person, not the person who flunked her A-levels, do you know what I mean? I feel more whole. I've met some amazing people. I'm happy. I can say I'm happy now.
I deal with it a lot more better than I have done in the past. You know, I don't sort of turn to drugs anymore. Kind of aware of the friends I can sort of confide in and the support networks that I've created myself. Yeah.
I've got better quality in my life. I can open up a little bit more to family and friends around me, and I've also learned that I've got other friends out there that are in the same boat, and just come forward and just open up.
Behind the Label really changed my life and impacted me massively. Before Behind the Label, I was really closed off. I never really spoke to anybody. Didn't really find a reason for me to open up because everybody I had wouldn't listen, stuff or whatever reason. But then when I did this, it really opened up a lot of doorways. I've started doing so much because of Behind the Label.
But Behind the Label, I've got a more clear outlook rather than before. It was more clouded and I just cared about the day. Now I'm caring about the years and the weeks and how I'm going to progress in myself, really. And Behind the Label has given me that opportunity.
For a lot of people, it's just been a good experience. I find a lot of people have enjoyed it as well. We've all enjoyed it and we've all enjoyed being there and that.
From zero to hero. Now I've moved out of my projects. I moved there Monday. People are lovely. I start a job on the 28th of November. my whole world just opened up from this project here. This project. The Leon before, when he first came in here, was very loud, obnoxious. Didn't give people a chance, you know, to speak, because it always had to be about me being heard. And over the weeks, you know, I've learnt how to, you know, listen more and be more understanding. And you know, I find it quite difficult, to be honest. You know, finding out, you know, that I was the one that was being so loud and not giving people a chance, and I had a lot of time to think about that, and made me see a bit of a different light. So now it's made me feel a lot, you know, I feel like I've got this balance now, like.
It's actually nice to walk through town, go places now and walk standing up straight and head up held high and don't give a damn what people think of you and the way people look at you. I just coming back to them now.
My baggage will always be there. I'm classed as an alcoholic. It doesn't matter if I don't drink. That baggage is still going to stay with me for life. But I learned to live with it. I've dealt with a lot of things. Not to start with, I never seen my kids for 8 years. And now I'm in touch with them. And I see them every 2 months. I go to visit them in Manchester. And because I live in Cardiff, it's a long way for me to go. But I still go to visit them every 2 months. But at Christmas and New Year, I go for the 2 weeks. For the simple reason is it keeps me sober. And last year, when I went for Christmas and New Year, I've got to be honest and say it was the first time I've been sober in 20 years. I got off my arse and sorted myself out, got into a place, ended up in a lush flat that I've got now. No problems with the residents or everything. So actually, to tell you the truth, I think I've done really well for myself, more than what I thought I would do. I'm in a better place now than what I was 4 years ago. I mean, I had nothing. Now I've got my own flat, I've got peace and quiet, I've got calm, I've got friends, I've got my family back, and I've got my life back.
Through the difficult times, Behind the Label helped me, I suppose, to cope with this situation, is because I always used to be a clammy person, a very clammy person. Didn't used to speak to nobody, rarely. Very brief anyhow. It opened me up, so if I did feel things was getting on top of me, I would ask for some advice or some help, rather than bottling it. So I suppose that's what Behind the Labels helped me to cope in a situation like this, because I feel like I'm part of something, not just a number sat on a street trying to get £1 for a cup of tea or whatever. And they don't judge me for who I am or what I've done or whatever. They treat me as a human being and as an equal, I suppose.
These guys now, you know, they're friends for life. We've been through hell together, and if I ever did it again, I'll never forget this. I'll remember this for the rest of my life, and the fact that it's helped with my family and everything else, I'll take away each and every one that I've worked with, and stay in touch as well.
It's hard, it's intense, but yeah, I'd like to be a part of that and show them that, you know, you can get your voice out there.
I've had a few instances where I've thought about going to get a drink, but then I think of all the bad times of when I was drinking and just realise I really don't want to go back to that life again.
After doing Behind the Label 2 years ago, my relationship with my family is much better. I'm involved with my children so much more. I think, as I said, I'm a better person from going through that. You know, I've gone through some horrible stuff, but I've come out the other end of it.
So many opportunities that I wouldn't usually have.
The group sessions helped me come out of my shell more. The only group sessions I'd done before were in prison, and you don't really engage in them because you're worried that people will see a different side of you, whereas in these, they're non-judgmental. You can, and it all stays within the group. You're all from different backgrounds, but you're all in the same boat. It's helped me form friendships with people from different backgrounds I probably would have either avoided or not. They would have avoided me. I learned a lot more about listening and seeing the best in other people. Even if, like beforehand, I wouldn't have. Beforehand, I didn't really see the best in anyone. But now, I try to see positives in every person that I meet. I learned to stand up for myself a bit more because I've been quite easily led and a bit of a pushover. I learned to, if I don't agree with something, to say I don't agree with it, but be constructive with my feedback. I learned that everyone's entitled to their own opinion and to appreciate other people's opinions, even if you don't agree with it. I learned a lot more about listening and seeing the best in other people, even if, beforehand, I wouldn't have. Beforehand, I didn't really see the best in anyone. But now, I try to see positives in every person that I meet and stuff.
Loads of things from Behind the Label actually helped. One big thing was actually leaving the abusive relationship I mentioned about before. I think if I hadn't, having the support group helped anyway from outside Behind the Label, but if I hadn't learned to, stand up for myself and learn to recognise what was toxic, what wasn't, recognise what a healthy relationship looks like, I'd still be in the relationship now. I'd admit that. I'd still would be, because I would have recognised it. People have been telling me, but I just didn't want to register that's what it was. But doing Behind the Label, I've noticed what isn't and what isn't, what is and what isn't healthy. I've learned to cut ties with people who aren't good and not be afraid.
It's just an experience everybody should have a go at, and it's just good to see people that have been coming in for the first time actually opening up and trying to accept the fact that they're like everybody else, not in their shells on their own.
Throughout the project, we've always experienced highs and lows. We've had to constantly reflect on those, learn from those, learning from things that could have gone better and things that have gone really well, so that we keep doing those things that have gone really well. And key to that has always been the input of the group as well. It's not something a group of facilitators go away and decide for themselves. The reflection and the discussion of the way forward was something that was always done with all participants. And I think the hardest thing that the group experienced was the death of one of the participants during the actual project, during the time we were running the project, particularly because the person, Matt, had been in the project since day one and had kept coming back each year. And he didn't come back as a peer mentor like many of the others had, because he knew he wasn't ready for that. He was definitely one of the ones who was the hardest to work with initially, very destructive in lots of ways. Although what was interesting was he would be destructive in his behaviour, but he still kept coming every week initially. And that was when we realised, there was this real desire to be there, to make changes. And over the years he did quite significantly, and he reached the point where he'd cut down his alcohol intake drastically. He was back in touch with family. He'd got his own flat. There were so many positives that were happening in his life. And he was a real role model, I think, for a lot of the new people coming into the group, as well as the older ones, to see how much change he had made and how many positive things were happening in his life. And his death was very unexpected, and it was quite a blow to the group. What was important for us as part of the project was to discuss his death in the group and to celebrate his life and to celebrate what he'd achieved in those years and how happy he was, how happy he'd become over those years with having his family back in his life, with having more control over his life. So although it was an immense loss for the group, we tried to work with it as something to celebrate in terms of his life. Let's celebrate what he achieved. Let's celebrate that he was part of the group, that he influenced so many people within it. And he's still very much a part of the group. He's referred to quite a lot. And he was someone who brought a lot of laughter to the group. And I think that what's been lovely is that's continued. We'll often all make reference to him, to his laughter. He had this very signature laugh, very loud laugh. And so it was that act of not pretending a loss hadn't happened. We wanted to be able to feel the loss and grieve for the loss, but at the same time celebrate his success and his life and focus on the positive. And I think the group did that in lots of very beautiful ways, that they didn't see this as something that brought them down or was destructive to the project in any way.
Last year's Behind the Label was a good experience. I mean, I've done it for the last 3 years now, so this is going to be my 4th year this year. But last year's was phenomenal. I've never been so happy to see so many people really enjoy it. It was tremendous. I can stand up for myself and be proud. Wow. But now I'm trying to recover, and I've got my kids back and my grandkids as well. So happy days. There is hope at the end. Just explain to somebody what happened, all the events, let it out of your system, everything. Don't hold it back. I mean, I held it back for 30 years and it buggered my life up. I could have said something fucking else. And it buggered my life up. And look at me, I mean, I ended up as an alcoholic. Now, I'm trying to recover.
...2020 of the project brought a lot of changes because of the COVID pandemic, and we did have to learn to adapt to lots of new ways of working, and this involved a lot of educational ways of dealing with the pandemic, because many in the group, there was a lack of understanding, there was a lack of possibility to get news, and so many of them, if they were street homeless, didn't understand what was going on and were afraid. There were a lot of conspiracy theories. There was a lot of fear because this client group have a lot of other illnesses very often, so they were in a very vulnerable group, so there was fear related to that. And then there was dealing with the isolation that COVID brought and the lockdowns. And so we looked for ways to work around that, to be able to maintain contact through adapting technology, which was a challenge in itself because this group doesn't easily access technology. So we had to be very creative and inventive, and we needed to listen to what the group needed very, very much so during this period. In addition to that, we saw a lot of new homeless emerging. As a result of the lockdown, there were people who had lost jobs, whose relationships had broken down, and there was a new homeless group emerging. There was also a lot more groups emerging that were affected by mental health. The isolation that lockdown had brought had affected that for a lot of people. And so what we were looking at was, during that year of the project and going forward, as we're still in the midst of that, was how we could best meet the needs of our client group, but at the same time be alert to this new group that was emerging within. And part of that was, as we were coming to the end of our funding, was also looking at how do we take all the positive we learned from Behind the Label and apply that to this new situation that has emerged with the COVID pandemic, and try and move forward with that. And we came up with the idea for a new project based on all that learning, which would be called Behind the Mask. And it was addressing all these concepts of isolation, feeling excluded, difficulties in understanding what was happening, but also in making ourselves understood, and all these other things that had came out of the last year and a half with COVID. And so our plan now is to move forward with that, and we are very fortunate that we are in receipt of another community grant from the National Lottery, which is going to enable us to continue this work and develop it in a way that will continue to help this client group. And we're very fortunate to be in that position. I'm very grateful for it too.
Victims, we're survivors, even though sometimes we lose our way. We're not victims, we're survivors, even though sometimes we lose our way. I found a true family to guide me through, to guide me through the darkest days. I found a true family to guide me through, to guide me through the darkest days.
Despite what you think, our lives are not a game. We start on the same square, never end up the same. You know nothing about me, but you label with shame. Have you walked in my shoes? Can you feel my pain? We're trying to make gains. We still look with disdain. I'm not a number, human being with a name. Many friends have been lost to the roll of the dice. I'm glad to take in this chance to take this advice. We've opened our eyes and I've realized how to navigate the A to Z of life. Yeah, right. I've lost too many fights as I high as a kite. Now
We're victims, we're survivors, even though sometimes we lose our way. We're not victims, we're survivors, even though sometimes we lose lose our way. I found a true family who ain't gonna break. Who ain't gonna break, break or sway. I found a true family who ain't gonna break. Who ain't gonna break, break or sway.
Don't label, there's more to us than meets the eye. You're quick to judge.
Do you ever ask why?
You see the powder, the bottle,
Shins on the fag.
but there's a real person.
It's sad that sleeper bag who's being victimised, institutionalised, criticised, demonised, now trying to get head stigmatised.
I
was forced to make these choices.
Forced to do the crime.
Don't have to go to jail.
To do the time.
Now we're stepping out. Through this revolving door. And the carriage and the fight.
To win the war.
Show me behind our labels. We're all left ashamed. Now it's time to take us on you today.
We're not victims, we're survivors. Even though sometimes we lose our way. We're not victims, we're survivors. Even though sometimes we lose our way. I found your family who will stay. Who will stay, stay I pray. I found your family. Who will stay, who will stay, stay I pray. I found your family. Who will stay, who will stay, stay I pray. If I'm a true family, who will stay? Who will stay? Stay, I pray.
Oh, brilliant. It's amazing. Wouldn't miss them for the world.